How do we know what a writer intended us to get from her work? We judge most of what we read by whether or not the writing captures our attention and holds our interest. Beyond that, what we get is the product of what we bring to the reading, our own life experience, our own knowledge of the setting. But what about the author? What does a novel like The Roundhouse or a short story like The Red Convertible tell us about Louise Erdrich? At the end of The Roundhouse, narrator Joe says, "We did not stop this time. We passed over in a sweep of sorrow that would persist into our small forever. We just kept going." At the end of The Red Convertible, written over 30 years earlier, another young man, Lyman, says, "It is finally dark, and then there is only the water, the sound of it going and running and going and running and running." Comparing these two works is interesting because they are similar in so many ways. However, contrasting the two works will probably tell us more. Erdrich was born in 1954 in Little Falls, Minnesota, and named Karen Louise. Her parents would have 6 more children for a total of 7. A member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Ojibwe, or Chippewa, on her mother's side, Erdrich spent much of her childhood in North Dakota at the Wahpeton Indian Boarding School, still open today, but now called the Circle of Nations School. In 1972, Erdrich attended Dartmouth College in the first officially co-ed class at the previously all-male school. She graduated in 1976 with a BA in English. She earned an MA in writing from Johns Hopkins in 1979. In 1981, after reconnecting with a favorite professor, Michael Doris, Erdrich returned to Dartmouth as writer-in-residence at Dartmouth's Native American Studies program. That same year, Erdrich and Doris were married. Before marrying Erdrich, Doris had adopted 2 boys and a girl. He was the first single man in the United States to adopt. They had 3 daughters together and co-authored 2 books, The Crown of Columbus and Route 2. In addition, Erdrich authored 5 novels, 2 volumes of poetry, 1 children's book, and several individually published short stories while married to Doris. When asked about Doris during the 2010 interview for the Paris Review, Erdrich said, "He was the kind of person whom people want to make happy, and he couldn't really be happy." The family moved to Minneapolis, Minnesota in 1994, perhaps looking for a fresh start. They divorced in 1996, however, and in 1997, Doris committed suicide. In the same Paris Review interview, Erdrich said, "I would have loved for Michael to have had his own life as a writer, and not covet my life as a writer. But he couldn't help himself, and that was the beginning of the long ending." Since Doris's death, Erdrich has gone on to write 8 more novels and another volume of poetry, and several children's books, while raising her daughters. She owns a bookstore in South Minneapolis called Birch Bark Books, about which she told the Paris Review, "We attract writers, especially Native writers, and we host literary events, which means again the bookstore is more than a business. It is an arts organization. We support a number of Native artists, basket makers and jewelers and painters. We sell medicines grown by a Dakota family, sage, sweetgrass, bare root. My sister Heidi and I launched an affiliated nonprofit press that will publish in Ojibwe and Dakota languages. With a small bookstore, you get to encourage your eccentricities. It's quite a wonderful thing, this bookstore." In The Red Convertible, Lyman tries to cheer up his brother Henry by giving him something to do, some work Henry can be proud of. Sadly, Lyman fails and Henry kills himself. In The Roundhouse, Joe loses his close male friend, but to an accident and not to suicide. Of course, the world is still a hard place 30 years after The Red Convertible, but the message of The Roundhouse does seem to echo what Erdrich told the Paris Review. There are people who kill themselves no matter what, and there are people who won't do it no matter what. There are people who can go through an endless level of psychological pain, and still they will not kill themselves. I want to be that last person.